Hey, Margo.
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing well, doing well. How about yourself?
Good. I'm in the middle of stuff, so I can't turn on video.
Okay, you're good. You're good. I'm gonna put the sign-in sheet in the chat real quick. And I'm thinking maybe this might be it.
We can give it another minute, I
Okay.
think, or else we're ready. I mean, we're ready to go when you are, Spencer.
Honestly, I don't mind. Yeah.
Okay.
I was telling Stephanie before I kind of started getting migraine right before this meeting, because of course it'll pop up on you right before a meeting. But quickly, I'll just gonna start off by going over what's Restore the Delta has been up to right now, because I know in our last meeting we mentioned that we were planning on getting started with testing in April, which unfortunately didn't start happening yet because we were still getting trained by water board folks with Karen, who was at the meeting last month, as well as like some of the other water board folks. But we got our training done. I got my list of interns that are going to be working on the water quality testing this year. And we are scheduled to go out and start testing on the 2nd of May. So starting next week, we'll be going on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays out to different locations, grabbing water samples, and then running the test strip tests on during the same period, so that we can grab samples and then just make it most efficient. Have that put into our database and then put it onto the water reporting map, which will be available to the public as soon as we start populating the data. But aside from that, are still we're still set up to work pretty well. We'll be having our samples that'll get sent out to UC Santa Cruz once we start sampling that, which should be the second week of every month. And that's kind of what our plans are, to get the more specific testing, which I think is kind of just more of a summary of what we did last, or what we mentioned last with the last meeting. But aside from, I was going to say aside from that, if there's any questions, but Margo, it seems like you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, hi. So Spencer, along with the water testing, because there's an air factor along with this, are you also air monitoring in those locations? And is that a constant air monitoring, or is it intermittent along with your testing?
Okay, so at least for the air monitoring, that is probably going to be more along the lines of with our partner organization, which is the University of North Carolina right now. We've been in constant contact with them for the past 2 months, I want to say. And they're working on putting those air monitors up in both Discovery Bay and Stockton. But they're only going to have one monitor in Stockton, which is going to be right at the 5-star marina. And they'll be measuring PM 2.5 and 10 at the same time frame of which we'll be sampling the water samples, so that we can kind of confer with each other what was showing up at the same time. And that's kind of where our link to the air quality is with the testing we're doing for the water quality. If that answers that.
Sorry, I was muted. So does that testing then, it does not test for the actual, what the harmful algal blooms actually put off?
Yeah, I mean, it's interrelated in a sense, but it's more along the lines of what we're testing at our Restore the Delta is the harmful algal blooms within the water content and in the worst case scenario. So if it becomes a worst case scenario and those samples become aerosolized, that's when it becomes an issue, and maybe it gets picked up by the monitor that's in place over in the 5-star marina.
Okay, thank you.
And
Spencer, I don't know if you were planning on getting to this. Do we have updates of UNC's kind of efforts to start their research?
that was the meeting that we had the other day. Which is kind of, it's a sad update, but we're working with them, but they're having a little bit of a contract issue with the Delta Council right now, but we're trying to work through with them, trying to ask them what their issues are, and it's as sort of an issue that we're trying to help them get situated. But it's looking like it's going to work out fine. But Haley, if you remember Haley, but Haley is one of the graduate students at UNC, and she's the one who's kind of like the head in charge of putting these monitors up and then gathering the data and sending their samples out to UC Santa Cruz, University of Miami. But she made her first visit out to California. It was, I want to say, about less than a month ago, and unfortunately, Restore the Delta, we couldn't meet up with her since our schedules were so overbooked at the time. But she got out here, she was able to see the sites, and they're planning on setting up shop somewhere in Antioch when they go again, which will be in June. That point in time is when they're going to actually be putting the monitors up, because June is when they're supposed to be starting that sampling method. And let's see, what else did they do? They found their stuff. They found a spot in Discovery Bay, which I know doesn't really apply to us, but they found that spot. They found that they were able to talk with the people at the 5-Star Marina, found out that they wanted to sample specifically between 10 to 3 p.m., which is also kind of the same time frame we'll be sampling the harmful algal blooms, because that's when they're most present, especially at the hottest times of the day for the most part. And what else? They met with the USGS folks, and that's who they were with for the most of the time when they were there. That's what I know. They also, I mentioned that they're going to be sending some of their samples out to UC Santa Cruz for antitoxin analysis, and then also their microcystin sampling will be done in the University of Miami. And that's pretty much what I gleaned from the meeting we had just a few days ago. And that was actually about it from that meeting, because I mean, I mentioned that what our testing plan was and so forth, but we never really got around to, not many people even showed up for that one either. So, but yeah. And yeah, Scott, do you have a question?
I guess just to clarify, so I was copied on an email, I think it was yesterday, from Barbara. Very sad to hear about the loss of her family. So when you speak with her, just let her know that, thinking of her and send my condolences. In that, so that message made it sound like there was maybe some risk of the UNC contract not getting kicked off for another year. So in my hearing, I don't know if Stephanie's question was the same one or not, but has that been resolved? Is that what's been resolved, you were saying, or? It's
kind of a work in progress right now, because what I found out from Hans Pearl, because he's the professor there, he said that it's a conflict of interest issue where the Delta Council is trying to put UNC as a whole in conflict of interest, and Hans is trying to say that no, it's just my research group that should be involved in that. And that is the only issue with their contract right now, which is why we're trying to step in and try to get that solved. It looks like because one of the responses recently said that they're trying to fix their contract. So we're hoping that that's going in the right way, but you never know what'll actually go through. But it's looking on the up and up right now, but I will try to keep everybody updated as well. So.
Great, thank you. And then the other question I had is just, I'm not a science guy, so let me, I'll preface the question with that. So when you're talking about the aerosolization of the harmful algal blooms, and then the monitoring using a PM 2.5 and PM 10 monitor, so does the aerosol of harmful algal blooms kind of reveal itself as a PM 2.5 then, or a PM 10, or are there other toxic substances that might also be in that mix that would be important to monitor for?
So that I'm pretty sure what they're, at least I think it shows up in PM 2.5. I want to say that what they were mentioning, because they had a presentation, I want to say about 2 months ago, about how it was hard to differentiate what toxins were showing up on the filters, and it might be, or it wouldn't show up in the first place. And especially with the area of Stockton that filter is being put up, it's probably going to be picking up a ton of pollutants in that area. But I think the toxins do show up when they get onto those filters, but it's just a matter of isolating them. I think that's the main issue, and that's something they're still kind of fixing or trying to fix at this point.
Okay, so I think maybe then to circle back, part of what I thought I heard Margot asking was, would that data be like monitoring data be available real time or not? My understanding about toxics monitoring is that those are typically captured in a filter and have to go to a lab and would not normally be available real time, whereas the PM 2.5 normally could be. So maybe it's both, huh?
I think that's probably more along the lines, because they mentioned having to grab samples from a filter. So it's probably not going to be as real time as it would be, but there would be timestamps for when those samples were taken, as what I understand so far.
Okay, and then the only other thing I just wanted to share is that Lily Wu from OEHA actually shared with me an article she found yesterday from, I think, Food and Ag, that just talks about actually health impacts of harmful algal blooms and impact on livestock and animals and people and all that stuff. There's an article in what I'll link actually to the chat here, just for people's interest, this is all new to me. So I'm always learning, like trying to find as much as I can learn about it, because it's a new subject for me. So I will copy that article in the chat. I think it's down on the 3rd or 4th page of it, but for anybody that might be interested in reading that.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it's important to clarify that there's no known or unknown concentration of the toxin in the air that is harmful to humans. That's been established. There's been some thresholds established for water quality, but we don't know enough yet about the whole, respiratory inhaling it and then the different processes through the body, what a safe or unsafe level is. So even if we see the readings in real time, there's really no context to evaluate what that would mean in terms of human health risk.
Definitely. Was there any other questions? Because that's pretty much the updates for the most part for what we've from both the meetings and the RTD happenings.
Have you all, Haley, who you were speaking about, wrote a review paper on aerosolized cyanotoxins, and I think it's a good overview of the topic for those people that who want to learn more about what we know. It's a pretty up-to-date paper.
Oh, she did write one?
It's a review. It's a review article. So just like everything that we know about aerosolized cyanotoxins and exposure.
Okay, I'll have
I can
to
send the link over if people are interested.
definitely. I mean, I'd also probably have to definitely need to read it. I didn't realize that she'd written one out. That's my mistake there. But also, I'm sorry to put you on blast, Ellen, but I was curious what you guys are doing at the port, because I didn't get to be part of that meeting, and I'm sure other people at this meeting would want to know too.
Yeah, so my name is Ellen Priest, and I work for Robertson Bryan. We're a small consulting firm in the Sacramento area. And my background is working on cyanobacteria and harmful algal blooms and associated health risks with the toxins that the blooms produce. And I've been working here in the Delta for about 7 years now, working on several different research projects in close collaboration with the Central Valley Water Board and other researchers, including UC Santa Cruz is on one of the projects that I'm working on. And then most recently, the project that Spencer's referring to is just last week, the port in the city of Stockton agreed to provide funding this summer for us to conduct a comprehensive, mostly focused on microcystin, but harmful algal bloom study along the Stockton waterfront to complement the efforts that are ongoing by others. So this is also in close collaboration with the Central Valley Water Board. The project was developed with them. And so they had the funding for lab analysis and to do most of the sampling events, but they didn't have funding to interpret or analyze any of the data or report project outcomes. And so that's where my role comes in, and that's what the port and the city are funding. So just a quick overview is that we're going to have 11 sampling events this summer, We have 5 different locations along the Stockton waterfront and along the deep water ship channel into the Stockton waterfront. We're going to be collecting surface water samples and then also water samples at the bottom of the water column, where we'll be measuring different nutrients. And then in the surface waters, we'll be also characterizing microcystin concentrations so that we can determine the temporal and spatial extent of the issue. So instead of targeting kind of the worst case, we're going to have these fixed stations and characterize what it's like throughout much of the water column, with the idea that hopefully we can focus future monitoring, in certain locations and just help provide guidance for where future monitoring should occur. We're also going to do 2 events where we look at phosphorus in the sediments, and that's to better understand the legacy phosphorus issue there. That's a big driver of these blooms. And so we'll use the water column nutrients and then the sediment nutrients to just better characterize the situation there and understand, why we're seeing such severe blooms in this area. And then finally, matching up our samples with the Restore the Delta effort that Spencer was describing. There's a big interest by the water board, to kind of combine all of the efforts that are occurring this summer and put together a holistic picture of what's happening in that area.
I want to say that's a big deal too, because at least for the past few years, it hasn't been really too covered, at least for this side of the Delta. But it's good to also see. I didn't realize you guys were doing the deeper water grabs for that too, and that's information I'm definitely interested in seeing, because we're only doing surface grab samples and running the Eurofins Abraxas tests, which I want to say you're probably running too, or unless you're running a different.
So for our toxin analysis, that'll all be through UC Santa Cruz, where they'll be using the mass spectrometer to look at the different microcystin variants. So there's over 200 different variants of microcystin out there, and the equipment that UC Santa Cruz has can measure approximately 11 of them, the most commonly occurring ones. And that's another piece of information that we don't have, is that we are not sure which variants are occurring in the Stockton waterfront. And so it'll be helpful to get a better understanding of that as well.
Definitely. Well, thanks for sharing. I'm glad to hear about it too.
Yep. Look forward to being out there. I should mention I'll be out there on the ports boat at least 4 times this summer as part of the sampling effort.
Gotcha. Okay. Did anyone else have any questions or wanted to touch on a topic or?
Yeah, hi. Separate from the study, Spencer. I know AB 617 was at Earth Day. I was with the Sierra Club booth when I could be. I just wasn't feeling well. I did not make it around. So I don't even know what we had at our booth for AB 617. Is there, or is it time to create a little 1-page factoid sheet about what harmful algal blooms are for people? Because, honestly, up until not that long ago, I didn't know what they were. And you heard about don't let your dog go in the water at certain times of the year. You heard that stuff, but so for when we have large outreach like that, is there food for thought? And I don't know if you have something like that, Ellen, or if that's something we need to create here, Spencer. I don't know.
The water board does have a document that explains that, and then EPA and Centers for Disease Control have their own versions of the documents as well. That probably would be best to just use a version of one of those.
And we could always, because one of our agenda items, or one of the things we want to make for when we're testing, is to have those kinds of FAQ sheets to hand out, because one of the things you have to deal with when you're testing in the field is wandering eyes and people coming up and asking you, what are you doing? So it's in our idea to form our own FAQ sheet for sure too, on that too, to be able to hand out to people in the area that are just interested in what we're doing. So I'm sure we can mass produce it for events where we're tabling or things like that too. So could see that being something we do for sure.
I don't want to volunteer anyone, but I know that, so I guess I'll just kind of put out there. Yeah, so there's this working group that, the water board and some other folks get together, and Spencer and I got to hear some research that was going on from Haley and for UNC. And I know that it's not quite ready yet, and I know that they're with their kind of research contract, a lot is going on right now, but maybe kind of looking into the near future when things are a little more ready and publishable, to have her come speak to this group. I think her research is really interesting, and maybe like Scott said, very sciencey, very technical, but I think still definitely could be something of interest for this group.
Definitely. Yeah, that's something I even discussed with her a few months back about getting her on this to be able to present what she's finding, because she's more focused on the air quality side of things than I guess we are, or the Delta are. So be definitely something I agree to get her on here and present for sure. And
Margot, I just put in the chat actually a little trifold brochure that the back half of it is something that the water boards, it looks like they use the back half of it is all about the algal blooms. So it might be something to launch from, or some good data in there if you decided that, you want to put together something customized or special for Stockton, but looks like there is some information already out there pretty readily available.
and
I think it's good to have that, and I think as we move forward, attaching AB 617, letting people know that we are looking at that too, I think is helpful. Rather, I mean, not recreating the wheel, but just kind of making sure we're spreading the word too.
Another idea is from the air perspective is that Florida is a state that has done most of the research on aerosolized cyanotoxins. And so it may be useful to look and see if they have any resources that could help supplement what you're trying to put together.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, they have pretty severe air quality issues there with the toxins, right? Does that sound familiar?
They're definitely noticing it in the air, and I think they're still and in people's nostrils, and they're still trying to characterize what that means. But the blooms are becoming much more severe in that area. Lake Okeechobee, and then going down the India River Lagoon onto the coast.
any final thoughts? Because if not, I can move on to maybe next meetings or ideas. Because by the time we have our let me stop before I go too far. Okay, well, at least for the next meeting, I'll have a lot more to present because we'll at least at that point in time have a month's worth of data in our database, something to look forward to because we are starting testing on May 2nd next week. So get that into the agenda for next month for sure. I'm thinking probably towards the end of the month again next month, for that way that there is a month's worth of data. But is there anything else anybody wants like a report on? I could try to get Haley on next month to see if she's got something to present, but they won't have any data until I want to say June. So, but I can definitely get that into the works too.
Spencer, I know that the water boards actually did attend the last subcommittee meeting. Are they invited kind of as a ongoing regular part of the group here?
I could definitely, yeah. I can invite them from my end for sure. I didn't invite them for this one since there wasn't too much to update on, but I can definitely keep them in the loop, and I'm sure they'll want to hear from our side about things too. So
yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll mark that down real quick. Is there anything else? I mean, are people interested in hearing from Haley next month? Well, at least before I mark that down. Okay. Sorry, Margot, did you want to say something?
No,
Oh,
No,
I'm sorry. Okay,
just nodding.
okay, okay. Well, with that, I think that does it for the meeting, if unless there's any other final thoughts. No. Okay.
Lots of light reading in the chat for those if they're not
Oh, yeah.
clicked into it.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah,
Both in there.
I've got each of those tabs opened up in my tabs right now. So, well, thank you everybody for showing up.
Thanks, Spencer. Thanks, everybody.
Answer.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
See ya.
Guys, take care.
See you later.